Hi guys, good afternoon. Sir JM here. We're going to discuss our topic for today via video recorded, and this will be only a 10 minutes discussion. So before we continue, binabati ko kayo ng Happy New Year everyone. I hope you had fun spending quality time with your family, friends, and to your jowa. Charis. Sana all. Okay, so let's continue to our discussion. For our learning title, we have the information literacy, definition, and the value. How about our learning objectives? We have to here. First, we can use guided questions leading to information literacy and create a topic that can use stages, elements, information literacy. So yung sinasabi nitong stages and elements, malalaman natin mamaya during our discussion sa ating lesson. So after the discussion natin, you will create or you will choose a topic that you will use for the stages and the elements after ng ating discussion. Okay? Okay, sige. So before we continue guys, I want you to answer these two modules, yung what I know box. And these are the question. First, what is literacy? Next is, how can the information literacy help you as an individual? Nakakatulong ba siya sa'yo? Yes or no? Kung hindi naman, bakit hindi? So, lastly, number 3 is, if you heard the information literacy, what word came to your mind? So, ano yung naiisip mo kapag na-encounter mo yung word na information literacy? So, I need you guys to answer the what I know box before we continue to our topic. Okay? Okay, so sasagutan yung what I've learned box after ng ating discussion or after masagutan yung mga activity mamaya. So, moving on. So, we have the definition of information. Data had been collected, processed, and interpreted in order to be presented in a usable form. So, just like data gathering, case study, thesis, mga ganyan, we collect data, we process the data, we make judgment to the in the data in order to us to be presented in a usable form. Kasi doon naman ang main objective ng mga thesis ng mga data gathering in order to be presented in a usable form para magamit natin siya. So a broad term that can cover process data is a derived from study, experience, or even signals or symbols. In the media world, information is often described knowledge of specific events or situations that have been gathered or received by communication, intelligence, or even the news reports. So, ganun po si definition of information. Sometimes we receive the information to make use of it. Tama? Kasi hindi naman tayo magre-receive ng isang information, ng isang bagay na hindi natin alam kung hindi natin gagamitin. It would be useless and unmeaningful. Kasi we collect data, we receive data in order for us to use the data. Kasi hindi ka naman kukuha or magre-receive ng isang information kung hindi mo gagamitin. Although we may not use it on the spot, magagamit din natin yan in the near future. We just need to store the information. Tama? Okay, so how about the next slide? Sinasabi dito, lead a discussion using the following guided questions and prompt. Okay, so ito yung mga steps, ito yung mga elements. First, okay, so why do you need the information? Bakit ka nga ba kukuha ng information na yon? 'Di ba? Bakit nga ba kailangan ng information na yon, guys? What do you think? Of course, we need to use the information na meron tayo. Yung kukunin natin information. To be updated with the news for educational purposes, for communication, and to acquire knowledge needed for the decision making. So we ask question or we retrieve information in order for us to gain knowledge or to gain information. So may mga bagay na maybe yung information na yun is for learning purposes, for educational purposes, or even for the communication purposes. So that is why we need the information. Okay? So next slide. Where do you search for information? Okay, so pinaka-common na sa atin as ang internet, si Google. So if we ask question, Google, how do you do this? Google, what do you need when making or baking this? Mga ganun. So we search for information in the internet na. Ito na yung pinaka most common way to search for the information is via internet. So we have the television, of course, library, and of course radio and newspaper. So mga ganon. So, how do you acquire and store information? So, paano nga ba natin nakukuha yung information na yon? So, for example, when we use the Google, di ba screenshot na lamang yan? Google, how do you cook adobo? Andun na yung mga steps. And sometimes we just screenshot yung information na yon. Na-retrieve na natin yung information na yon. And then, although sometimes, of course, we write the recipe, diba? We print something like that, and of course sometimes we download it to our memory card, mga ganong So next is, how will you determine the quality and the accuracy of the information that you have? So, resourceful lang ba siya or baka fake news yan? So, of course, it should come from a reputable source, no? Mga institution, mga kilalang pangalan, mga Rappler, GMA News, ano pa ba? Any sources na magsasabing totoo is mga kilalang institution dapat yung mga pinagkukuhanan na ating mga information. Okay? So, next slide is the information literacy. A set of individual competencies needed to identify, evaluate, and use information in the most ethical, efficient, and effective way across all domain, occupation, and profession. So it refers to the ability, no, to recognize when information is needed, to locate, evaluate, and sometimes it will effectively use to communicate the information in its various form. So kapag na-store natin yung information and kapag nagamit natin, you become information literacy. You become literate person with that specific tool, diba? So we have here, guys, the stages of the elements. We have the stages or the elements of information literacy. So yung kanina, so stage 1, information needs. So what information do you need? Stage 2 is the sources of information. Where do you search for information? Stage 3, access to the information. Stage 4, evaluate the information. Stage 5, organize. And last stage is to communicate the information. So first stage, information needs. Kailangan mong maging specific when it comes to the information that you need. So, it doesn't need to be broad. So, for example, how to cook adobo, yung sinasabi ko na nga lang, you need to be more specific. Diba? Kasi kapag medyo malawak yung topic mo, edi magiging malawak din yung scope ng data gathering mo. So, para hindi ka na mahirapan, you need to make a specific topic only that you need to search for the information. Okay, so stage 2, sources of information. Where do you search for information? Diba, nasabi ko na kanina, it could be internet, books, newspaper, mga ganung bagay. Okay, so step 3 is access to the information. How do you acquire and store information? Sometimes, kung sa Google lang siya, we screenshot those things or we write those things. Okay? So, stage 4, evaluate the information. How will you check the quality of the information? We go to the reliable sources, mga respectable resources, mga GMA, Rappler, okay, and so many more. Stage 5, you need to organize the information. So, in doing this, guys, we need to organize our information para hindi tayo mahirapan executing the plan that we have. For example na lamang, pinakasimple na lamang is cooking adobo. 'Di ba? How to cook adobo in a sequence. So, hindi mo naman kailangan pwedeng unahin yung patatas tapos masusunod yung manok. Hindi na adobo ang tawag doon. Magiging mashed potato na yung patatas mo, tsaka mo palang ilalagay yung adobo. Magiging pangit na siya. So, you need to organize the information that you will have. And lastly is, communicate information. How will you create and communicate them? How are you going to execute the information or the stages or the elements that you have? So, ito na yung process, no, ng pagbibigay or the communication information. Kung paano na siya magiging reliable source or kung paano mo na siya magiging magagamit, kung paano mo na magagamitin yung information na yon. So, this is the elements or the stages of information literacy. So, we have the information needs, sources of information, access to the information, evaluate information, organize, and lastly, to communicate the information. Okay, for your activity, guys, do the activity time. Okay, so developmental activity muna. Yun lang po yung gagawin niyo for the activity module number 6, sorry. So, module number 6 lang po ang gagawin. So, ito activity lang po ang sasagutan sa ating module number 6, the developmental activity. So, who, what, where, when, and why, and how to get information. So, write your answers to your modules, okay? So, sagutan po ito sa ating modules. If you have any questions, clarification, and concern, please mention me to our GC and re-replyan ko po kayo sa ating mga GCs. Kung wala ng questions, and that will be all. Goodbye and God bless.